Hello, today we will be learning about propaganda in art history. Let's begin. So, what is propaganda? Propaganda is information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Examples of this would include advertisements and commercials. In art history, propaganda can be images used to persuade the public to a certain viewpoint using persuasion and ideologies. This has an influence on the attitudes, beliefs, or opinions of a targeted audience. What are some prominent examples of propaganda? This is the "We Can Do It" sign, and this is Obama's campaign. This first one is the "I Want You" for the US Army and Che Guevara's propaganda. Now we will explore some lesser-known examples of propaganda. First, we'll start off with paintings. This first painting is Slave Ship by Joseph Turner. The full name for this work is Slavers Throwing Overboard the Dead and Dying, Typhoon Coming On. This was created in 1840 with oil on canvas. Using the Romantic style painting, this painting shows an emotional use of color, rapid brushwork for the ships and the hands. You can also see on the bottom right image that the foot is chained as it comes out of the water. The bloody sunset is a symbol of the dramatic impact of this event. It was based on the true story of an event in 1781 in which a slave ship, the Zong, sailed for the Americas full of slaves. The scenery looks beautiful at first, but dark and macabre upon closer inspection. This painting and the event portrayed in the painting helped influence the Slave Trade Act of 1807 and the British Slavery Abolition Act of 1833. Slaves were insured against accidental drowning but not insured against sickness, a policy instituted to force captains to treat slaves humanely. Knowing that he would not collect insurance money on sick and dying slaves, the captain cast them overboard. The painting was inspired by an account of that scandal. England freed the slaves in 1833 by an act of Parliament. The poem that goes along with this painting is, "Aloft all hands, strike the topmast and belay. Yon angry setting sun and fierce-edged clouds declare the typhoon's coming. Before it sweeps your decks, throw overboard the dead and dying. Nearer heed their chains. Hope, hope, fallacious hope. Where is thy market now?" Propaganda is power. Now we will explore some lesser-known examples of propaganda in sculpture. This first sculpture is Augustus of Prima Porta, created in 20 CE from marble. It was a copy of the bronze original, which was Greek. This is held in the Vatican Museums in Rome. Here you can see Augustus has an oratorical pose. You almost at first can't tell whether he is a god or human, further emphasized by the Cupid on a dolphin on his right knee area. Cupid also helps identify that Augustus was from royal descent, and on his breastplate you can see soldiers fighting in war, and he has the typical breastplate and robe of a leader in Rome. This ideal image of Augustus was used to portray his power and also his godliness. This is in contrast to later works of art which instead chose to use realistic portrayals of their subjects to identify with viewers. Here is Doryphoros, which is also another sculpture that used contrapposto. Contrapposto is a relaxed tightening and lengthening of certain parts of your body, while the other parts are more relaxed. On the other hand, here are some realistic sculptures. On the far left is Vespasian, the portrait of Vespasian, who, using a realistic style of portraiture, is shown here to be more elderly and experienced. This also was a form of propaganda, as people would relate to someone who was more like them and who could show more humane aspects. Now we move on to architecture and propaganda. This first work is the Palace of Versailles, created in 1669 using masonry, stone, wood, iron, and gold leaf. This is also surrounded by gardens located in Versailles, France. This is an elaborate palace, and the center of the building was Louis XIV's bedroom or audience chamber, and the rest of the design radiates like rays from the sun. Hence, Louis XIV is known as the Sun King. This palace is centered in a vast garden and town complex that radiates from it. Louis XIV was an absolute monarch. The scale of the project indicates how powerful the king was. The Hall of Mirrors, shown below, has a barrel vaulted painted ceiling. Light comes in from one side and ricochets off large panes of glass, the largest that could be made at the time. There's also a flickering use of light. Classically and harmoniously arranged, the formal gardens near the palace are always on when the king is near the gardens. However, there are more wooded and less elaborate plantings farther away from the palace. Here is an image of the gardens in Versailles. The mile-long canal is crossed by other canals which form the main axis of the garden. Only the fountains near the palace were turned on at all times. Others turned on only when the king progressed through the gardens. This illustrates the belief that humans can organize and control nature to make a more refined experience. This shows the power of the patron, especially in Baroque architecture. Here, the Palace of Versailles was used to propagandize Louis XIV's power and his control over not only nature, but the people in France of the time. Our next work of architecture is the Forbidden City. Created in the 15th century under the Ming Dynasty using stone masonry, marble, brick, wood, and ceramic tile, located in Beijing, China. The largest and most complete Chinese architectural ensemble in existence is here, the Forbidden City. There are 9,000 room walls 30 feet high. Each corner of the rectangular plan has a tower representing one of the four corners of the world. The focus is on the Hall of Supreme Harmony, which had the throne room and was the seat of power. The wood structure was made with elaborately painted beams used for grand ceremonies. Yellow tile roofs and red painted wooden beams placed on marble foundations unify the structure in the Forbidden City into an artistic whole. Yellow was also the emperor's color. The Forbidden City was the emperor's palace and the seat of Chinese power. It was the capital of the empire during the Ming and Qing dynasties, originally built to consolidate the emperor's power. The Forbidden City is known as forbidden, in that no one could enter or leave the inner sanctuaries without official permission. The throne room is symbolically at the center, where animals and figures on the roof were placed, to ward off fire and evil spirits. Surrounding the wall of the Forbidden City is characteristic of a Chinese city where privacy is paramount. This also connects to the protection and containment part of Chinese culture. The mandate of heaven bestows a mandate on the emperor who rules with divine blessing as the son of heaven. Here are other paintings and examples of propaganda throughout art history. This is Chairman Mao and Route to Anyuan, based on an oil painting in 1969 and is a color lithograph. This is Spaniard and Indian produced a mestizo in 1715 oil on canvas by Juan Rodriguez. This is non-modal, made from 700 to 1600 with basalt boulders and prismatic columns in Micronesia. Great Pyramids and Sphinx, made in 2550 to 2490 BCE with limestone in Giza, Egypt. So see if you can figure out how those previous sculptures, architecture, and paintings demonstrate propaganda. Here are some clues. They might demonstrate propaganda through their size, the audience it is intended for, the patron who made that piece of propaganda, the materials used, and the power of the person who created that piece again. Thank you for listening. Any questions? Leave them below. Thank you.